If you have watched all these videos on my channel and you are not yet connecting with the Salah in the best way possible, then you do not have an idea of how beautiful the structure is. In this video, I'm going to share with you the beauty of the structure of Salah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to my channel where I share with you the beauty in practicing, the sweetness you can experience as a practicing Muslim. So in this video, I'm going to share with you the beautiful structure of the Salah. The Salah has such a beautiful structure that if you ponder on it, you would be pulled back or you would be excited to go into every Salah. So the first part of the Salah is when we start the Salah and we say Allahu Akbar, which means God is great. So God is great for me what it implies is when I compare the thought I have currently with how great Allah is, then the thought completely vanishes. It's like I've put them on a weighing scale, and believe me, or you cannot compare the thought you have, let's say, maybe stress about work or stress about a family member's health. When you compare the two and you say Allahu Akbar and you ask yourself, who of these could be greater? Definitely it's Allah. So when you say Allahu Akbar, your heart just melts and you just enter into the Salah with a sense of hope in Allah, with a sense of connection into the Salah. So Allahu Akbar is something that keeps bringing you back into the Salah. It's so beautifully structured in the Salah that with every change of posture, you're saying Allahu Akbar, because with every change, we are likely to lose concentration. If I'm standing, a thought might come. So if I'm changing position and I say Allahu Akbar, then I compare the greatness of Allah with the thought that has come to my mind. Definitely the thought vanishes after pondering on the greatness of Allah. So I enter the next position with even more concentration, with more connection, with more acknowledgement of the greatness of Allah. So Allahu Akbar is mentioned, if I remember correctly, it's mentioned about 6 times in the Salah. And I feel like it's such a sweet thing to have Allah place that at different positions in the Salah with every change in posture, because change in posture influences your concentration. If you've been seated and then you stand, you're more likely to concentrate, you're more likely to have a different perception. If you've been standing and then you sit, you're more likely to have a different perception. So if you're doing these movements in the Salah and then you do Allahu Akbar, and then the thought comes and then you change posture and then you say Allahu Akbar, there's a way it's beautifully structured and intertwined to help you keep coming back in the Salah. And it melts my heart to think about how empathetic Allah is to his slave who has these destructive thoughts that keep on taking them away from the Salah. So Allah puts Allahu Akbar in the Salah at intervals to keep you coming back. I think it's such a beautiful thing. It's such a beautiful thought. It's such a beautiful placement in the Salah. And it makes me realize that Allah is so loving. Allah has a lot of compassion for the slave that has stepped into the Salah. The next part of the Salah that really, I don't know, all these parts are so beautiful, but then this part comes in where you're on ruku, where you're bowing, and then you say, Subhana Rabbiyal Azimi wa bihamdi. So when you're saying that, you're praising Allah. Yeah? So you're saying, glory be to Allah, the one who is supreme. But then you are glorifying Allah and you are not sure of if he is listening. You're not sure of the fact that you are glorifying someone who is listening. So as you're coming back from the bowing, you stand up and say, Sami Allahu liman hamida. And that for me is just a beautiful statement, because it's like Allah acknowledging his slave by saying, I am hearing you, or I'm listening to you, and I'm listening to how you're praising me. Sami Allahu liman hamida means Allah listens to the one who praises him. So when you come back from ruku after praising Allah, then you say Sami Allahu liman hamida, which acknowledges that definitely Allah listened to my praise as I was bowing in that position. Then interestingly, the next part is also praise, where you're going into sujood. So we can look at this as like it's in between. Sami Allahu liman hamida is in between two praises of Allah. So when you're coming back from ruku, you could be wondering, is Allah listening to me? And then you say, Allah definitely listens to the one who praises him. But then it could also mean that you are going into sujood, or putting your head on the ground, which is the closest place you could be to Allah. Yeah, so it's sujood is the closest position in which a slave is closest to Allah. So as you are standing saying Sami Allahu liman hamida, you're acknowledging that Allah definitely listens to his slave as he praises him in preparation of the time you're going to be so close to your master, which I find so beautiful. It's like Allah is saying, forget about the dunya, forget about the people in whose presence you are expressing and they don't give you a listening ear. You are currently in the presence of the one who listens, as-Sami', the one who is a listener. So you go into sujood and you just utter praise out of the satisfaction of Allah is definitely listening to what I'm saying. And those three aspects are so beautiful in the way they are structured in the Salah. Allahu Akbar, which brings your concentration back in an empathetic way. Allah would have structured it and put it only once, but then he put it 6 times at intervals, knowing that the slave is going to be always distracted, so he needs bringing back. Such a compassionate attribute of Allah, who is Ar-Rahman. Then Sami Allahu liman hamida, the reassurance from Allah that he's definitely listening to his slave as he's praising him. So the next part for me is the prostration, which is the sujood, and then coming back and going again into prostration. For me, this is just my perception of things, but if sujood is the closest place if it's the closest position in which you could be with Allah, I bring it back into our human experience. And the closest position in which you could be to a human being is a hug. So if I'm hugging someone and then I pause and let go and then I hug them again, that's like acknowledging how close you are to this person. So you've hugged them the first time, and then you embrace, and then you feel, and then you let go and think about who they are to you. It could be a child, it could be a mother, it could be anyone in your life. And then you hug again, and then you embrace, and you feel this connection to this person. And that's what I translate the going into sujood and coming back and going into sujood again. You are going into the presence of Allah. So after the sujood, we are definitely coming back for the next rakah. So the beautiful structure continues according to how many rakas you're praying. But then we come to the tahiyyatu, which is at the end of the salah, or which is, if you're praying 4 rakas, there are 2 tahiyyatus every after 2 rakas. But if you're praying just Fajr, which is 2 rakas, then a tahiyyatu is at the end of Fajr. So as you're saying a tahiyyatu, I find this, I would call it a proclamation or expression from a slave to be so beautiful. I think there's I don't remember correctly if it's a poet or if it's someone in the olden times, based on the preaching I was listening to. He said the tahiyyatu is picture a slave, or when you're a slave of Allah, you are not the slave of human beings. So the slave of Allah is like a respectable person. He has this elevation in terms of status. So picture this slave of Allah, and for the purposes of being relatable, picture a knight. A knight, I think we know what a knight looks like, entering a palace in which his master or his king sits on this throne. Yeah. So this knight enters, and then he puts his sword down, and then he takes off his, I don't know what the headgear is. Is it a helmet? Is it a, I don't know. But he takes off all these things that are like the armor and the sword and the helmet, and then he falls into prostration to his master. And that is what the tahiyyatu is. You have now entered the presence of Allah, and now you are in awe of who Allah is, and now you're starting to greet Allah, and you're starting to, like, the aspect of Salah is now sinking in. You have been praising, and Allah is listening. Now you sit with yourself at this point in tahiyyatu, and you start saying at-tahiyyatu, which means salutations. You cannot salute someone who is far from you. So if you're saying salutations, and you're saying, and everything pure and good, which is wa tayyibatu, and then you're saying wa salawatu, these are all acknowledgements, or these are sayings that can only be said to someone who is so close to you in that moment. So you're acknowledging that you are saluting Allah. You are, wasalawatu would mean, and prayers are to Allah. So every prayer, inclusive of this one I'm making currently, is dedicated solely to Allah. Wa tayyibatu, and everything pure and good is definitely from Allah, or it's definitely has a connection to Allah. Meaning that whatever I have experienced in the Salah and outside of the Salah in my day, it has all been Allah. So you say that tahiyyatu, and you are in this presence of Allah, and you say at-tahiyyatu lillahi, salutations to Allah, was-salawatu, and all these prayers we make are definitely for Allah, wa-tayyibatu, and everything that's pure and good that came out of this day has been Allah. If that does not melt your heart, I don't know what will, because that small aspect, connecting to Allah, and in the sense greeting Him, is such a beautiful part of the Salah, and it's structured after the Sujood, which is when you're closest to Allah. If we take it back to the analogy of the hug, here now you're now talking to your friend and expressing how you feel connected to him and grateful to them, and it's just beauty upon beauty. So you say at-tahiyyatu, and after being in awe of who Allah is, that's when you said, definitely I bear witness, and you say that tashahud and say ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. I bear witness, after all these aspects of Allah being a listener, being present with me in this Salah, being the one who is responsible for all the goodness that has come from the day and this Salah, I cannot deny the fact that ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, that there is no God but Allah, wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is his messenger, that the one who brought Islam and taught us about Allah has to definitely be the messenger of the Most High. So in this proclamation, it comes from the experience of all these aspects you've been talking about. And then as you've internalized them, you're now saying the Shahada from a place of contentment, from a place of, you are too convinced that you can only say the Shahada in this moment. And then after the Shahada, you continue with other aspects of the Salah and praying for the Prophet. And then if you have truly enjoyed the process of the Salah, this is a point where your heart might break a bit, where you're leaving the Salah, where you're leaving the presence of the one who cares for you the most. So you say the Salam, and you say Assalamu alaikum to those on my right, and Assalamu alaikum to those on my left, meaning that if I had any, let's say I have my friend on the right and we just had an argument. Let me be honest, this is actually a true story. So I had my friend and we had a mini argument about something. So I enter the Salah and I pray all these aspects and I feel all the beauty that comes with the Salah. And I say the Salam, and the Salam means peace be upon whoever is on my right. Wa rahmatullahi, and the mercy of Allah. Wa barakatuhu, and the blessings. So as I'm saying this Salam, and my friend is on my right side, this person was in the other room. But the fact that I was proclaiming these words, I had to embody them. I could not say As-salam and then I leave the Salah with a grudge. So immediately after saying Salam and I turned to the left and said Salam, I paused for a moment and I said, Ya Rabbi, you got me this time. Like, I have to let go of this grudge, because if I've said the Salam and I'm wishing peace upon the person on my right and rahmah upon him and blessings upon him, then why am I leaving the Salah with a grudge? I have to definitely let go of this and just move on. And yeah, eventually after the Salah, I went back to my friend and I had let go of it, because how can I say wa rahmatullahi and the mercy of Allah? And as a slave who is striving to be close to Allah, I do not have rahmah upon the creation of Allah. So I left that Salah that day. I let go of the whole argument. It was a mini argument, so I let go of it. But the Salah my point is, the Salah has such a beautiful structure that if you are not influenced by it after leaving it, then you have not actually analyzed how beautiful this structure is. I hope you're able to embody or internalize the beauty that has come from the Salah, or that you've experienced in your Salah. I hope it happens in the next Salah you're going to pray after this, because that alone can establish a sense of connection for you and a sense of connection to Allah, which means that you're building this sweetness in practicing. I hope you loved this and connected to it. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.